Double compound fracture. You know it's bad when Peter Schmeichel, the guy who used to stop strikers from scoring, nearly threw up on the pitch. It's April 8th, 1996, Coventry versus Manchester United at Old Trafford. We're 2 minutes into the game, Coventry get a corner. Busst comes up like every centre-back trying to live his Sergio Ramos dream. Ball swings in, he charges in, and bam! He collides with Denis Irwin. His leg snapped through the skin, literal bones sticking out. It was so bad, Manchester United's physio didn't even run onto the pitch. He jogged over, then immediately waved for a stretcher like he just saw someone get dismembered. But then Schmeichel happened. The man was pale, hands on knees, dry heaving, couldn't look. Imagine a grown man seeing something so disturbing, he needs therapy. That's how bad it was. But it wasn't even a malicious tackle. No studs up nonsense, no Roy Keane, I'm ending your career for fun kind of moment. Just a freak accident, a tangle, a mistimed collision. It took 12 minutes just to fix everything. They had to delay the game because the pitch looked like a crime scene. And it was a crime. Against anatomy, it literally ended up with 2 compound fractures and serious infections. Yeah, because the horror didn't stop on the pitch. He got an MRSA infection in the hospital. Doctors said if it spread, he might lose the leg completely. Busst went through 22 operations in total for playing football on a Monday night against a team that wore black socks with red shirts. He officially retired a couple of months later, never played again. Career ended before his name could even become a proper chant. But then the cruelest part of all, he still holds the record for shortest playing time before a career-ending injury in Premier League history. Now the aftermath? You'd think after a man nearly lost his leg, they'd blur the footage or stop showing it every year. Nope, they ran it back every time to analyse it or something. Here's Bust's bone poking out again, Steve thought. Yeah, I know it's weird, but then it got so bad, the Premier League literally banned showing replays of graphic injuries during live broadcasts after this. And Schmeichel? This wasn't a small moment for him. He said it haunted him, said he had nightmares, which again is wild. This is a guy who used to scream at defenders for sport. Even Sir Alex Ferguson admitted it shook the entire squad. Imagine a dressing room full of 90s Hardman, Cantona, Keane, Bruce, and all of them rattled because of a quiet defender from Coventry. And the irony? Coventry weren't even that bad back then. They finished mid-table. Busst was actually decent. If he had a few more solid seasons, he might have gotten a move. Maybe to a newly promoted side. Maybe even a late England call-up as injury cover. Instead, career gone in 2 minutes. Replaced in history not by his performances, but by the sound his leg made when it snapped. Horror leg break. Arsenal were top of the league in 2008. Yeah, I know it sounds strange, but still. Fabregas was bossing midfields, Adebayo actually knew how to score goals, and Wenger still had both zippers on his coat working. But then, Martin Taylor happened. Game versus Birmingham, Eduardo da Silva gets the ball near the touchline. Innocent, calm, man was literally just trying to trap the ball, and then Taylor comes in, late, clueless, and swinging like he mistook Eduardo's leg for a bowling pin. The result? Eduardo's left ankle turns into an abstract painting. His fibula snapped, his ankle dislocated, and for a brief moment, it looked like his foot was pointing in 2 different time zones. Sky didn't even replay it. Yep. The people who show slow-mos of Bruno Fernandes blinking were like, yeah, nah, too much. To be honest, Martin Taylor wasn't even a dirty player. That's what made it worse. This wasn't Roy Keane trying to avenge Alfie Haaland. This was just a big, slow centre-back with the reaction speed of a vending machine trying to win a ball he had no business going near. He got a red card. But what Arsenal lost was much worse than just a man advantage. Eduardo was never the same, and neither was Arsenal. You could literally see the life drain out of that team. They went from, we're gonna win the league to, nah, next year maybe. But the saddest part of all is that not even the injury was the darkest thing that could happen to him. This man was supposed to be the next big thing. Instead, he spent the next year learning to walk again while Arsenal learned how to bottle top 4 races in increasingly creative ways. But wait, it gets dumber. After the match, Alex McLeish, the Birmingham manager, actually tried to defend Taylor. Said he wasn't that type of player. Right, and I'm not that type of guy, officer. I just accidentally crashed into 37 parked cars. Even Arsene Wenger, a man who once called pizza throwing a tragedy, said Taylor should never play again. That's how furious he was. And when Wenger gets spicy, you know it's serious. But then his teammates, who were mildly said shocked. Czech Fabregas looked like he just watched a horror movie. Gallas, Arsenal's captain, sat on the pitch crying like someone had just cancelled his Netflix subscription mid-series. This is a team that had gone 21 games unbeaten. And they emotionally broke down right there, in Birmingham, of all places. Eduardo eventually came back, scored a few nice goals, had some decent moments, but the magic? Gone. He later admitted he didn't feel the same. Arsenal never recovered that season. They ended 3rd, and United, as usual, cleaned up. Oh, and here's a cruel twist of fate. Eduardo scored on his comeback match and got injured again 5 minutes later. Cracked skull. Peter Czech didn't wear that helmet because he thought it looked cool. It actually saved his life. Let's rewind to October 14th, 2006, Chelsea versus Reading. A match no one remembers, except for Czech. Or maybe he doesn't, because he literally almost died on the pitch. We're into the game. Reading midfielder Stephen Hunt, full of energy and zero coordination, charges for the ball. Czech slides in to collect it. And then, crack! Hunt's knee slams straight into Czech's head. Not a gentle bump, not a little tap. full knee to skull like he was trying to launch him into the stratosphere. Czech goes down and doesn't get up. What the fuck? Yeah, that's what it's called. A depressed skull fracture, as in the bone got pushed inward. Now you'd expect medical staff to sprint on, right? Nope. Chelsea's team doctor took ages to get to him. Ages. Mourinho later called it a disgrace. Said it took several minutes just to get him off the pitch. Czech finally gets to hospital and boom, straight into surgery. Doctor said if he arrived just a little later, he could have died because of a midfielder with the balance of a microwave on wheels. But then came the moment where it gets even dumber. Chelsea had to use all three keepers that day. Czech, out with a smashed skull. Kudishini got knocked out cold in the same game. John Terry literally put on gloves and finished the match. In the end, Czech missed 3 months. And when he came back, enter the helmet. Fans joked he looked like a rugby player, or someone who just lost a bet. Some even claimed it made him worse, as if nearly dying and wearing protective gear is a performance downgrade. Spoiler, it wasn't. He came back and was still elite, still world class, still made strikers cry like toddlers without snacks. That helmet, it became iconic. It's in FIFA games, Halloween costumes, Sunday League banter, but behind the memes, trauma. Straight up head trauma. But some people really thought that the helmet was just for one game. Nah. Czech never played without it again, because doctors said if he took one more blow to the head, he might not survive it. So yeah, joke about the helmet all you want, but understand, he was one more collision away from permanent brain damage. Also, Chelsea didn't just move on. They filed complaints, demanded changes, and honestly, they were right. The Premier League changed its entire concussion protocol because of this. New stretcher rules, new checks, new medical access. To this day, if you search worst football injuries, Czech is always on the list. Not because of gore, but because of how close we came to witnessing a literal death on the pitch. And somehow, he still finished his career as a Premier League legend, Golden Glove winner, and Europa League champion. With a helmet. 2 broken legs. Unlike the others, this one is really weird actually. Djibril Cissé broke his legs, twice, in 2 different years, 2 different clubs. Let's start with 2004. Liverpool versus Blackburn, standard Premier League fixture. You expect goals, maybe a red card if someone's feeling frisky. What you don't expect really happened this time. Cissé chases down a long ball, standard striker hustle. Then his foot plants wrong on the turf, gets stuck. Defender slides in, snap. His leg literally bent backwards. His shin turned into a boomerang. Commentators went silent. Players looked like they just witnessed a medieval execution. Cissé is screaming. He's stretchered off in pure agony. Liverpool fans in the away end? Traumatized. The medical staff? Shaking. Rafa Benitez didn't know what to do either. This man was millimeters away from going full pirate, before he'd even made it through 1 full season at Anfield. In the end, after months, he was finally recovered. But then the darkest thing you'll hear today happened. You thought that was it? Nah. Cissé is built different, comes back early, scores some bangers, even wins the Champions League in 2005. No worries at all, right? Wrong, it's 2006. France versus China. Yes, China, in a friendly. No trophies, no stakes, just vibes, and that's where fate strikes again. Sissy takes a pass, defender taps him, just taps, that's all it takes. Crack, right leg this time, opposite side. This all happened right before the 2006 World Cup. He was in the squad. France needed strikers. Instead, they got Sylvain Wiltord. That's how bad it got. And Cissé? Back in the hospital, back on crutches, back to rethinking his entire career. But here's the thing, he never gave up. Cissé didn't just survive, he came back again. Played for Marseille, for Sunderland, for QPR, scored goals everywhere. He even played in Greece, scored 100 goals and celebrated like he just invented fire. Never lost his swagger. And the best part, he kept dancing, literally. Cissé joined Dancing with the Stars. This dude broke both legs, missed a World Cup, and still decided, you know what, I'm gonna do the salsa on national TV. What an absolute menace. He took the worst kind of injuries twice and said, I'm not done yet. Most players retire after 1 clean snap. Cissé came back from 2. Bone snap. Stoke versus Arsenal, which already sounds depressing. Not a football match. Stoke were playing their usual 18th century rugby disguised as tactics. Arsenal, on the other hand, were trying to play football. Big mistake. Enter Ryan Shawcross. A walking elbow. The human version of a kitchen cabinet corner. 62nd minute. Aaron Ramsey receives the ball. Calm, focused, about to start a counter. He's 19. Barely got a beard. But then, boom. Shawcross flies in like he's been launched out of a cannon. The tackle? Late, high, stupid. The result? Ramsey's leg bent like a straw. His tibia and fibula snapped. Ramsey didn't even hit the ground before screaming. And the sound? Oh mate, you could hear it over the crowd. A loud pop that made grown men in pubs drop their pints. Players instantly panicked. Cesc Fabregas covered his face. Vermaelen looked like he saw his tax bill. Even Stoke players were shook. But then Shawcross did something genius. He starts crying. Actual tears. Told you, quite a genius. He got a red card. Then a call up to the England squad the next day. Seriously. Yes, the next day. But hold on, because this was the 3rd time in 5 years an Arsenal player suffered a horror leg break from a committed English tackle. Eduardo, broken. Dibby, broken. Ramsey, triple bonus break combo unlocked. Even Wenger was fuming. Said there's a British culture of kicking players. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. Shawcross claimed, I didn't mean it. Cool. Intent doesn't change the fact that you just disassembled a teenager. But then Ramsey, to his credit, came back. Stronger, better, and somehow more clutch than ever. Scored the winning goal in not one but two FA Cup finals. Became a midfield machine, grew into the captain. But the real twist? Every time Ramsey scored, a celebrity died. Seriously, it became a meme. He'd score, and within 48 hours, Whitney Houston, Paul Walker, David Bowie, Bin Laden, people started watching his matches nervously. But memes aside, Ramsey's comeback was insane. He went from screaming on the pitch in agony to scoring screamers from outside the box. From stretchered off in Stoke to running midfield at Juventus. While Shawcross retired quietly with a back injury and 0 FA Cups. Justice, I guess. Skull fracture. You know how people say, go hard or go home? Well, Ryan Mason went hard and almost didn't go home at all. January 22nd, 2017, Hull City versus Chelsea. Ryan Mason, a 25-year-old midfielder, new dad, playing the best football of his life. He's marking a corner. Gary Cahill comes flying like an absolute idiot. They both jump, they both go for the ball, they both collide. Mason's skull gets damaged a lot. Man cracked his actual skull, but this time people would later say it was horrifying to watch. Mason drops instantly, doesn't move, doesn't react. It looked like he just got unplugged. Players around him panicking. Ref whistles immediately. Medical staff sprinted faster than Theo Walcott in 2012. Within minutes, Mason's in an ambulance, conscious somehow, being rushed to St. Mary's Hospital for emergency surgery. They literally opened his skull to stop internal bleeding. Even his family was called in for potential last words. But then thank God Mason somehow survived. Spent the next few weeks looking like a cyborg with staples in his head. But you know what made it worse? The internet. People on Twitter were like, he's soft. Back in the day, players would have headed the ball with a broken skull and still scored a hat-trick. Yeah, sure. Eventually, Mason tried to come back, tried to train, but every time he ran, headaches. Every time he jumped, vertigo. Doctors said, if you play again and take another knock, you might not survive. So that was it. At age 26, Mason had to retire, but then it gets madly impressive. Mason didn't disappear. He didn't go cry on Instagram or launch a crypto scam like half the retired players. He studied coaching, he stuck with Spurs, his boyhood club, and by age 29 he became their interim head coach. You heard that right. The same guy who had his skull rebuilt with spare part was now managing Harry Kane's son. He even got a win in his first game in charge. Youngest manager in Premier League history. Meanwhile, Gary Cahill, the guy whose head clattered into Mason's, didn't even get booked. Didn't get punished. Mason is now helping the next generation of players avoid ending up like him, working on protocols, speaking up about concussions, fighting the same outdated tough guy nonsense that nearly killed him. So the next time someone calls a player soft for getting subbed with a head knock, remind them, Ryan Mason got metal plates in his head from one header and still came back, not as a player, but as a Premier League boss. Hardest man in football might be the one who never played again. Cut tendon. Some players miss World Cups because of injuries. Torn ACLs, broken legs, collapsed lungs. Santiago Casillas. He missed the 2002 World Cup because of aftershave. Yep, Spain's squad is just about to fly to South Korea for the World Cup. Casillas is their starting goalkeeper. He's in form, confident, but before all that, he decides to do what any stylish man does before a long flight. He grooms. He sprays a bit of cologne, goes for the slick shave, looking sharp, smelling expensive, but then, while reaching for the bottle, butterfingers, it slips. Glass bottle falls, smashes on the bathroom floor. He reacts like any human would, tries to catch it, except it's glass, and as it breaks, a shard slices through his toe tendon. Later he would explain that the team doctor didn't even believe it at first, thought it was a joke. But nope, confirmed, clean slice, tendon said goodnight, and Casillas said adios to the biggest tournament of his life. Spain was stunned. This was supposed to be his World Cup. He'd waited years, sitting behind Zubizarreta in 94 and 98 like a loyal backup dog. Finally got the starting job in 2002, and then boom. But then, of all maybe even the best thing happened, Iker Casillas replaces him. A baby-faced kid who looked like he still needed parental consent to travel abroad. He wasn't supposed to play, but thanks to one unfortunate whiff of Hugo Busst, Casillas became a national hero. He saved 2 penalties in the knockout stage, took Spain to the quarterfinals, and eventually became a legend. Won a World Cup in 2010, captained Spain's golden generation, all because Casillas tried to smell like a Calvin Klein advert. But don't get it twisted, Casillas was no scrub. Dude had reflexes, shot-stopping elite, played for Real Madrid and Valencia, won Champions Leagues, won La Liga, and had one of the most dramatic hairstyles in football history, that bleach blonde spiky cut, iconic. In the end, Casillas retired, became a pundit, started judging other players with the same energy they judged him about the aftershave. Honestly, it's legendary in the most tragic, memeable way possible. He's like football's version of the guy who got fired on his day off. So yeah, when you hear worst football injuries, you expect blood, bone, brutality. But sometimes, it's a drop of cologne and a bit too much flair in the bathroom. Santiago Casillas, goalkeeping elite, victim of hygiene, double fracture. You know what's worse than a horrible injury? A horrible injury no one remembers. Welcome to the Luke Nillis story, a man who had the talent of a world-class striker. Nillis had just signed for Villa that summer. Big signing. He came from PSV, where he and Ronaldo were dropping goals like mixtapes. Nillis was cold, silky touch, vision. Finishing that made defenders cry. First 2 games at Villa, scored in both. Fans were buzzing. We found our Bergkamp. But then in his 3rd game, disaster arrived, wearing a keeper's jersey. Nillis goes for a 50-50 ball with Richard Wright, Ipswich's goalkeeper. Nillis is fast, brave, and probably way too committed for a September match against Ipswich. Wright dives, Nillis stretches, and then snap, collision. And it was bad, like so bad players from both teams turned away. Blood on the sock, bone through skin, the kind of injury that makes you question if football's worth it. Crowd went silent, commentator went quiet. Ambulance came straight onto the pitch. Nillis was rushed to hospital, immediate surgery. At one point they feared they'd have to amputate. That was Nillis's reality. And just like that, his career was over. After 3 games for Aston Villa. No farewell tour, no testimonial, just rehab, scars and what-ifs. Now here's where the football world showed its true colours. Everyone forgot. Ask a casual fan about Eduardo, they'll remember. Ask about Ramsey. Oh yeah. Cisse? Yup. But Nillis? They'll think he's a brand of dish soap. And that's criminal, because this guy was a baller. In Belgium, legend. In the Netherlands, icon. At Villa, tragedy. He scored over 200 career goals. Was known for ridiculous volleys, free kicks, first-time finishes. He was basically Karim Benzema before the beard and scandals. But in England, he became the answer to a quiz question. Which Aston Villa player broke his leg 3 games into his Premier League career and was never seen again? You couldn't make it up. And Villa, they lost a potential star. But to make it worse, Villa fans barely got to know him. One minute he was scoring wonder goals against Chelsea. The next minute he was in a hospital bed wondering how it all went wrong. And the English media barely covered it. No big specials, no documentaries. Just a quick, oh that's sad, and back to talking about David Beckham's new haircut. Imagine if Nillis had been English, they would have built him a statue. Instead, he was Belgian and forgotten. But real ones know, that's football sometimes. It builds you up with goals and glory, and kicks your shin into the dirt and forgets you ever existed. So here's your shout out. You were great. You just played in a league that eats its artists and worships its bulldozers.